Thanks for reminding me to turn mine off.
See?
Mine is run in the middle.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:30. I call the meeting of the March 12th draft village budget hearing to order. Please stand for the pledge. It's an official public meeting. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And seeing that it is a public meeting, we have a couple items of new business to resolve. Three requirements.
Okay.
And the bare minimum needed for.
Oh, to schedule that.
Yes. The first order of business is scheduling a public hearing to override the tax cap. In the budget process, it became pretty apparent that we need to override the tax cap. And I will be talking about the effects of that, or lack thereof, in the budget presentation. But in order to do so, we have to schedule a public hearing on a local law permitting the village to exceed the tax cap. It's not obligated us to do so. It simply allows us to do so after the public hearing.
Is the time frame between this meeting and when we're having the public hearing, is there a period that has to be allowed for?
Yes, it is, I think, 7 days, and the public hearing will be...
It's only 7 days?
Yes, time.
Is this time?
Okay, we said
And do we have to do a notification in the paper and all that?
Yeah.
That's set.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will read the resolution. Whereas the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Round Lake wishes to have and hereby proposes a local law permitting the passage of a budget for the coming fiscal year exceeding the 2% tax cap in the form set forth below. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Round Lake declares itself lead agency for the purpose of the State Environmental Quality Review Act with respect to this proposed policy, that the policy constitutes routine or continuing agency administration and management pursuant to relevant regulations. Resolved that a public hearing with respect to enactment of a local law authorizing a property tax levy in excess of the limit established in New York State General Municipal Law 3C shall be held on Wednesday, March 21st, 2018 at 6:30 in the public room of the Round Lake Village Hall, also known as the Community. 49 Burlington Ave, Round Lake, New York, at which time all persons shall be heard, and it is lastly resolved that the village clerk is directed to publish and post notice of the village of the public hearing.
So, second, I guess.
Hold the board.
Yeah.
Yes. Second order of business is in August, we had a resolution setting forth allowed expenditures for the village's recreation fee funds. Those are the funds that come from part of the building permit, I think, that is assessed.
It's the recreation fee, there's a separate building permit fee.
Right.
And then there's a
Assessed to
a set recreation.
new building, new construction, such as Victorian landing and different.
Did we ever figure out why?
No, I can remember why. That's why I wanted to revisit it. Like, it seemed general enough that it's not.
I don't know.
I think it was tabled and just never gotten back.
I,
Town didn't know. And nobody,
Yeah, no,
nobody-
I mean, I have some vague recollection that when we discussed it, they were looking at the entire building permit fee structure. And, I mean, I could be misrecollecting that from another time we looked at the building fee
that would
structure.
affect it, because regardless of.
No, I know, but I don't even remember this, resolution. Which doesn't mean much, because there's lots of things I don't remember. But, I just wonder if there was some reason that,
Well, nobody remembers it if there was, so I would like to revisit it and make something, because the money's just sitting there in limbo now, it doesn't have a reserve fund to go into. So I'd like to do that before the end of the year, before it gets cold. And this certainly,
Does this change anything really?
it cleans up things. I mean, it allows us to put it into a fund from which it can be used or maintained. And some of this is a duplicate of what the parkland fund does already, but
so
it doesn't harm.
So when we issue a building permit, part of the building permit is the building permit fee, and then part of it is
They're
separate.
Two separate things
For new construction.
for the construction. There's a building permit and a recreation mitigation.
Two separate checks come in.
Okay, but
$1,000 is the recreation.
okay, so we are collecting that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I'll make the resolution.
I'll second.
Discussion? Already had.
Jump. Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Oh yeah, Heidi's late. She was stuck in the block. Page 1 of, not the budget, the document. Oh, yeah. This is a public hearing for the, to present the budget to the workshop, to the board. As such, there will be no public comments or questions. There will be ample opportunity for that at the budget meeting that is scheduled at some point before the budget. We haven't nailed down the date yet. In the first 2 weeks of April. Page 1 is the summary. The most important thing on this page is raised by taxes. That is the amount if we vote to override the tax cap.
And it's based on no property tax increase.
Yeah, there is. Yep. I'll get to that shortly, but yes, you can't say that too often. And now I will go with my prepared remarks. The document before you is the result of many hours of collaboration. Tom, Kim, Robin, Johnny, and I took a hard look at each and every line and honestly discussed the needs of the village. The end result is a balanced budget with no general general fund tax increase. We'll first cover the various funds, then highlight the revenues, appropriations, and long-term debt, and end with significant increases and decreases. As you know, the village budget is divided into three parts: the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. The general fund first. In order to balance the general fund, we're requesting to override the tax cap. Take $11,192 from the, Robin will hit me for using this term, the leftover funds, and $10,000 from the sale of real property, also known in the office as Belmonte money. Here is a brief explanation of each of these things. The tax cap. The tax cap hurts municipalities with rapid growth like Round Lake. It is based on a formula that is applied to 2016's assessed value. We've experienced rapid growth in assessed value. Overriding the cap has no adverse impact on the village residents. Taxes will not be raised and property tax rebates will not be affected. We need to override the tax cap to access the increased assessed value of the property in Round Lake. Leftover funds. The state comptroller requires that municipalities have sufficient reserve funds. There's a chart below that Robin made showing the history of how much unallocated fund balance, which I call the reserve fund, at the end of each year. This is the money that we will be dipping into to some extent, the $11,192. Real property, Belmonte money. We'll be receiving the third installment of a 4-year payment from Belmonte, the developer at Griffin's Ridge. This is considered a one-shot, and the comptroller strongly recommends that these funds not be included in the operating budget. We are weaning ourselves off this, and we'll only use $10,000 to balance the budget. We plan on putting the remainder in the reserve fund. Unfortunately, we cannot use it to balance the water fund. Coming up next. The water. In 2014, village water and sewer funds were audited. As a result of some shortcomings, we raised flat rates by 11% to make up for insufficient reserve funds. At the same time, we committed to reviewing and adjusting the rates. Unfortunately, we did not follow through with that, and as a result, we need to use $7,609 from the water reserve fund and to raise the flat rate by 7.5%, or $30 per year, which will raise $10,333.50. Along with this is a commitment to long-term planning for all the funds and to review rates annually. The sewer fund is in good shape. Water and sewer funds are supposed to be self-sustaining, and that is why, as I understand it, that we cannot take general funds and put it into the water funds, if I remember our discussion.
We can as long as that money is reimbursed
The long-term,
within the same fiscal year.
but it's not a long-term solution. Page 3 highlights some of the revenues, the major sources of revenue. County sales tax, $205,000. Malta and Ballston Spa fire contracts is bulk of our budget, $1,047,000. Rents from the post office and law office, $18,000. Permits, $20,000. Sales of real property, $10,000. That's the Belmonte money just spoke of. Water, $201,425. Sewer, $89,500. And raised by taxes is indicated on the first page. The next table shows the salaries for all employees as well as the overtime budget. Employee benefits total up to $124,867. And the next table shows the long-term debt service. One of the promises that we made in the office is we are going to get around to doing some long-term planning that every audit I've looked at, every municipality, every fire district, it is mentioned that you need to do long-term planning. Something everybody gets hit on because the comptroller is very serious about municipalities doing that, and that's going to be a big project. That's why I included the long-term debt here. Other village funds, park fund, reserve fund from the cell tower money is $229,616.18, and auditorium chairs $1,832.17. And page 4 is a chart of the significant changes from prior budget. And rather than go down each of them, there's a fair number. Are there any questions? I had answers for most of them.
If I have a question on page 4, shall we?
Nope.
I just was thinking on page 3 where you're listing positions and salaries. What is something like that? Didn't we approve for someone to oversee the auditorium? Is that for that completely different person?
Good question. That would be, it's probably should have been included.
Well, I think that was probably in auditorium contractual.
Right, but in a summary table, it probably should have included that.
That's what I thought.
Do we have an outstanding contract at this time? It hasn't been approved.
But it is in the budget somewhere. I just want
Oh,
to.
yes, yeah.
Yes.
Right, yeah, it's an oversight.
Well, probably not listed as a salary because
Yeah, I understand.
it's not determined who would be providing that.
I figured, I just want to make sure that
It did get
lost
lost.
oversight that wasn't in the budget. All right, back to 4.
Well, do we want to go through the highlights or do we want to go through the whole budget?
I
Which
would,
would you prefer, I guess?
Yeah.
It's up to you guys. With the committee also understandable.
I think the highlights have everything that was above $1,000 change. A lot of the other than salary, other than the salaries.
Street lighting went up because of the other areas now.
Pardon?
Street lighting increased because of the other areas like.
Believe me. We just bought LED lights at $70 a piece and spent $1,000 on 16 lights. So
That's up there or down here.
both Victoria Lane and.
So it will be changing to all LEDs ultimately.
I don't know if the village will,
No, that's where
Yeah,
Victoria
that's a
Land
big-
is.
but something like that comes out of the street lighting budget.
I just wondered at some point whether we're losing money with the lighting we have down here. I know it's expensive to change lighting.
It's
Where's
more complicated than that because the street lighting is unmetered.
Yeah.
So it has to be purchased from New York State Electric and Gas. And they have fixed rates for the types of lights. And there's a lamp fee and then there's a electrical usage fee. And if you have a street light that's 100 watts and you say, oh, I want to reduce it to 70 watts, if the light hasn't been in place long enough, then they come in and they're like, oh yeah, we can change it, but it'll cost you $1,600 for us to send a truck in and change it. So it's complicated. And I haven't checked lately, but at the last time I checked, they don't offer any upgrade, replacement, more energy efficient lights for the street lighting. If we went to put our own lighting in, that becomes a whole difficult process because every light would then have to be metered. So then you would have to run all the electrical to the lights. So we're kind of stuck with the pole mounted lights. We're stuck with that. I mean, we reviewed it a bunch of years ago. It certainly could be reviewed again and see. But basically their program is like, we don't offer LEDs, we don't offer something that's lower cost.
Change over time.
I can add to that actually, because we've had a couple of calls and someone stopped by from NICEAG, and they were presenting their program about switching out these lights for LEDs, and the one catch was you have to pay for the remaining life of each bulb. So they went and did a survey, looked at our account, did a survey of how many lamps we had and when they got installed, and we had to pay out of pocket $22,000 to pay for the remaining life. And then they bring the LEDs for free, but we had to pay that bill. So that was the first.
If a bulb goes out, will they replace with LED,
If say it again?
If we have a light go out, will they replace with LED?
I don't know. It sounds like
Well, I
it's a
think so.
program. I think it sounded like it was a program that you had to sign up for.
Pressure on the thing. You have to pay for the life of the bulb reads the end of the life, and that's when we should be able to change that.
Well, really what you're paying for is the cost and installation of the fixture. So, if they change to an LED fixture, they have to take the old fixture out.
Right.
And there's this whole process. Now, if the lamp has been in service long enough, it may have already reached its paid-for life, and then they'll change it. But they also have some arcane rules about not being allowed to reduce the wattage if you have a light that's brighter than it needs to be. And so, it's definitely, to be looked at again. But they've never been, every time they come in to try to offer to save money, it always costs more.
Just things have changed rapidly, I think that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, well, if we want to go through the line items that catch my eye, that's fine, we want to do that. We have municipal building maintenance. I think we talked about this before, but just so we're
Are you
sure.
one of those big packaging ones?
That was not the main, we reduced the budget from $15,000 to $8,000.
Yes.
So that reduction reflects the fact that we were doing capital improvements and,
Yes, the money was put in the budget last year for some upgrades.
okay, so that's not,
Last year?
We dumped some money in to do the roof.
did we do the roof? Yeah. All right, well, that's just a big change, I just didn't, all right, I'm gonna kind of ignore the fire department completely because they spend all the money they get and they prepare a budget, so.
Yeah, well, the fire department is going to, probably in April or mid-May, we're going to come to a meeting with the president of this company and explain how everything works.
Yeah, like I said,
We sign off on everything except
Oh, no, I know
for
we
the
do.
one payment to the hose company.
they
They have their own separate auditors and.
I know we do. I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't really do much good to sit here and say, oh, they're spending $227,000 for new equipment instead of $110,000.
Right.
What's that? Because it's their
Well,
budget.
it's for the fire truck.
And it's their money, so, it passes through us.
True.
Okay, so to understand how we redid the salaries, maintenance, if I look at maintenance of roads, okay, if I look at this is just so I can understand this. If I look at the 17-18 budget line, and I added up all the numbers above the 36,000, they add up to way more than 36,000. So I'm guessing
What page are you on? I'm sorry.
page 2, under maintenance of roads.
Last section before.
So if I add up all the numbers from the 23,000 to the 12,000, it comes out to way more than 36,000. So
The
what I'm understanding,
12,000 is contractual.
Hmm?
Yeah, that's not in salaries.
okay, but
You're talking about salaries?
I'm talking about that if I look at the summary under maintenance of roads, okay, I have a bunch of numbers that add up way more to the total at the bottom for 2017-18.
Third column.
Third column. So I'm assuming this has to do with the different way we're accounting for people's salaries this year than last year.
If we're only talking about salaries,
Okay, but you see where it says total maintenance of roads?
yes.
It says 36,620.
Mhm.
If I add the numbers up above that,
Yes.
it comes out to 12, 19, 20, 35, 45, and 23. It comes out to $68,000.
Yes.
So something's going
Something's
on in
going
the
on.
way
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
representing.
That's what was explained in the document that we sent around before. That, what we did up here is we added the salaries together so that there's a pot of money for the roads.
Right, but when you look at the spreadsheet,
Right.
it's, so this 23,720 is basically the summary of the numbers
It's
underneath it.
not very clear, you're right about that.
And so then we
This
move,
wasn't there last year.
right, and so we move that summary over to be just regular, the dot 10 account. And then the overtime, and then the contractual. And that's why the bottom numbers are pretty much the same.
Right.
But if somebody were to look at this, you know, without knowing that information, they would go, wow, something
No, you're
crazy
right,
happened.
that should not be.
So really, where it says regular, it should be like in parentheses, like, and say for reference.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
Well,
We'll figure it out.
I would just put a little brackets around it, just, you know, so you can say that that's for comparison purpose.
You can't put
Well,
oh, yeah, and over here you can. You can
Well,
put brackets.
yeah, you
You
could
can't put them by the numbers because that messes up the formula.
We'll work on that tomorrow.
Good point. Good
Well,
point.
just because when I look at it, I'm like, okay, so that's basically staying the same except for,
Yeah.
24,912 was 23,712 last year.
okay. All right, so then if we move on to garage,
And it's this page 35, okay.
and here we have a big change.
Yes, equipment.
Yeah, a lot of extra money went into that last year. As near as I can tell, it's from some of the extra Belmonte money, and it has to go somewhere in the general budget.
Well, we had previously looked at, you know, as I mentioned in the email, we had looked at setting aside X amount of money every year to build up an equipment purchase account. Now, is it my understanding that that money didn't actually get put into an account, it just became unappropriated fund balance that got moved?
It went into an account, but we're just not sure. In order to create an official reserve account, according to the comptroller, you need a policy, creating the account, indicating what it can be used for, things like that. And I'm not sure that that account actually had that done. And that's something on the list of things to do, is to create a couple of official capital reserve accounts.
Do we have money in capital, in reserve for equipment that we had accumulated over the last few years?
How do you want to think that one? This has been an interesting topic. Like with the salt barn project, you have to borrow from this account and then to pay the bills as they come in, and then getting reimbursed for the salt barn project, then we have to determine when that goes, so it's been a little challenging.
So if you look at our, remember that we have a balance sheet and we have our budget, and not everything you see not everything is on the balance sheet, which this is, the balance sheet, is clearly pointed out in here. It's within different items. So here's a general reserve right here. Okay, I wasn't here when these were set up, but this is a general reserve right here with this much money. Now, I'd have to talk to Jane, you know, and figure out what that was allocated for. $229,616.
That's a TARP line
No. Wait a minute.
fund. Yeah, right, you need lines on that report.
Okay, you're right, that is the park land fund, this is the general reserve. And then we have a DPW. Do I go into this? We have, within the water sewer capital project fund, we have a DPW capital project fund. And we have a water tower project fund. there was $25,000 in the DPW capital project fund that went towards the salt barn when we were trying to accumulate the money for the salt barn. However, I just paid back the village for that salt barn and now I have to distribute that money. So part of that, or that 25,000 will go back,
How much was it in the general reserve fund? Was it
20,000. And then of course you have your unallocated funds.
Have we, we started this a while ago with the, saving for the next piece of equipment for the DPW. Did John submit his timeframe purchase list so we can look at what money we need? I mean, I don't know what his
We
next.
talked about it at the budget meeting.
Several times. But
Okay.
he didn't submit anything more.
Okay, because my concern is, it would be good if we can to continue to, put money aside for DPW equipment, rather than, taking out loans for it. But at this point, it sounds like there is money, there is DPW capital money, we just don't know how much and, what the status of that fund is.
True.
And
We have to make sure it's an official
Reserve fund.
reserve fund so that, well, frankly, so we probably couldn't borrow for the salt barn. Unless we worded that.
Just to reiterate what you said before, we want to create reserve funds specific to these things that we know are coming down. And contingency funds that will hold money for things we don't anticipate that happen. That has to be like step 2 of this budget. And then we look at our funds, the unallocated fund and the reserve funds, and we decide where we specifically want to put that money for specific purposes. And create a legal reserve fund for that.
Okay. Well, on that basis, we have the garage equipment being reduced from $35,000 to $6,000. That's a big reduction in money to set aside for future equipment.
That's not for, are you talking 5132.2?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not for future equipment, that's a liquidated at the end of the year, it's not something that accumulates.
I understand that we didn't set up an accumulating fund, but that we had put extra money into the equipment budget and probably didn't move it to a reserve fund the way we were supposed to. But it created a surplus in the unappropriated fund balance that would allow us to continue to do that. So the $35,000 that was listed in there for last year was not that?
I have a question, because I thought the line item on the budget that was for DPW equipment, capital project is 995
Where's that?
Right.
the next page, that's not the point 2 equipment line item, I don't believe,
Okay.
is where we put that money
All right.
aside.
So why? So then I guess then the question becomes, why is the 2017-18 line item so large?
I think that there was thought that there might be some needs for the building over this next year. And now that we're in this year, we've come to realize that we don't really have those needs. That was my understanding. So we're kind of bringing it back to a $6,000 line item based on the previous years. That was my understanding.
All right.
And just one more point, you're talking about the garage equipment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just last week, all right, we started last year with a $35,000 budget. Last week, we still had $31,745 in there.
Whatever reason, because it was 6,635, and then it was 6, so I'm not sure why there was that blip, because before I was on the board, there's a large blip there, but it looks like they haven't even used it. We shouldn't be putting 35 in.
Okay.
Yeah, again,
Right, my point.
Johnny was part of all these conversations, and right over there.
Well, no, I mean, if we put put something in the budget last year that we didn't do or, you know, whatever, that's fine, I just was trying to figure it out.
Right, and remember, if that comes to be a need, we take it out to balance the budget, we always can go to our unappropriated funds and use that one.
Certainly, building maintenance has always been 15, now suddenly it's 10. And was there an explanation for that? It was a few lines down, 51, 30, 42. Building maintenance of the garage.
What was the number again, I'm sorry?
51 to 32, or 42. The fourth line in that group of the garage, second page, third page.
15,000 to 10,000?
Yeah, it's 15,000 3 years in a row, and now suddenly it's 10. I was just curious about another way of using the cash.
Okay, again, we started out with $15,000, we've only spent $305 to
Okay.
date, $305, so we still have a budget of $14,690.
And that, I think, was going, yeah, I know, he needed a new door,
Right,
All right, that sounds good.
1 or 2 doors, not the overhead doors, the metal doors.
Okay. The contractual part of snow removal is for sand salt? Is that, okay.
30,000 hours.
Yeah, no, I just, it went up and, you know, we got more roads, so I mean, it makes sense. All right, all the labor stays the same. Okay, under celebrations,
What page is it?
St. Bottom, page 3,
Oh, I see.
celebrations review. So we've always had a small amount of money in there.
Yes.
And I think last year we got money to do the auditorium, historic, you know, blah, blah, blah. But this year we didn't put any money. Huh?
10,000.
No, this year's 0.
No, it's in the wrong line.
It's in the wrong column.
I got lazy.
Oh,
It's in the wrong- it's in the wrong-
it's 10, but, okay, so then the question is, why, since that fund was normally used for like, you know, cookies and minor celebrations, why do we have such a big number in celebration? Since the year before was a one-time,
Well, there's
so we have a
Centennial.
Centennial this year and the 50th anniversary of the Community Village.
okay,
Party time.
okay, but just 10,000 sounds like
Not enough.
a lot.
You'd be surprised.
Well, I could pull up the budget of what we spent for the last celebration. Maybe that's what we based it on. Yeah, the landmark celebration.
Yeah, it just seemed like, if it is 10, it seems like a lot. All right, well,
Objection noted.
Yeah, I was wondering that one too, because
no, well, no, I just,
I would be less concerned if I knew, can you use it for anything else? For the auditorium if you need to?
well, I mean,
We use it for, you know, the Easter egg hunt, the Halloween party.
It has to be for a celebration, not for something breaks.
Oh, right, no,
It is
it's
Easter
Easter
candy,
candy.
Easter candy.
right, well, that's just why,
Like a lot.
right, I don't wanna, we want a budget amount of money that we think we're actually gonna spend, whatever that is. And so, you know, it just, I get a little leery of saying, oh, look, we're gonna assess, you can send, we got $10,000, and somebody's gonna make an effort to spend $10,000, you know, that sounds like a lot, but I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what's planned either.
Right. Last year we started with 13.5 and we spent 9,655 and we have 3,000
So we
left.
spent 9 on the,
It's mostly on the bell, I didn't know the organ.
well,
No, that was out.
Actually, a great deal of it was the landmark celebration and reimbursing folks for their expenses.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I got the statute.
I'm just trying to think if that had unusual expenses we shouldn't have to pay for. Such is June, when is it?
Happens once in a lifetime.
I know, it's coming up, right? It's what kind of,
It's now.
it's kind of a rush to
May.
the plan of events. I was just reading about, people were talking about.
June 2nd, I think
Yeah,
Scott
it's
said
fairly
June 2nd.
soon. Didn't sound like as involved or expensive a project as the land.
Well, I mean, I consider it a year long.
Oh, I
It's
see.
50th year, so that's my thinking. Well, if you want to cut it down,
No, I'm
What
just
do you want
saying,
to cut
if
down
I
to?
need something.
Well, I don't wanna just, I don't know who's planning it, and if they have some idea of a budget.
there's a committee that is planning it and they're working on a budget.
Okay. Well, I guess we should just, put a little star next to that item and
Still
see,
pending a budget.
Yeah, I mean, if they come back with a $3,000 budget, I don't think we should put $10,000 in our budget.
After next meeting, we'll be back on 9,000.
And one of the things I would like to see in this is, we just got the discs from Dave Kowski,
Oh, that's right.
and
So,
this would be part of maybe republishing that book.
Great.
So,
Well, I mean, and that's fine. I
If I
don't,
had Ken go into this, and that, because that's gonna cost a few thousand.
That's gonna cost
We can recoup it, but it's gonna cost. If we get this is converted.
okay.
I'm on the lookout for an old Iomega zip.
I had one, oh, that's got a long time, but I mean, there are places in down hall.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
It's
Okay,
in
so
drive. and-
Under auditorium, it looks like we just shifted around this contractual performance. We had
That's
two
correct.
line items and now it's, and I'm assuming one of those line items is the money that we pay to somebody to manage the auditorium.
No, that's in personal service point one.
So that's what I should
Okay.
add into this somewhere.
Okay. And this is, so then the point 4 and point 41 are just divided up for bookkeeping reasons?
Correct.
Okay. How much of the shade tree budget have we spent this year? Over 85.4. I mean, we get a lot of trees and they die. I just want to know how we were doing on that budget compared to what we're.
2,000, 1,000 left?
I'll tell you just a minute.
8560, did you say? Shade trees, here it is. Okay, we budgeted 15,000, we have 1,100 left.
I'm just suspicious of reducing that since we have to make it to June and we have one dead tree, we're going to be back to the 15.
Well, the only thing I can say there, and some of the budget practices, Gary and I agree, we'd like to change. And some of that is, don't go out and call and have a tree cut down without asking me what remains in the budget. Or asking one of us what remains in the budget. Now, I can tell you, did we already move money in here? The process has always been, go out and do it and then pay for it, but when you have to scramble to find the money to pay for it, it's very difficult. You can see the dominant coming in at any one time is $1,000 to $2,900. So, would it avoid unuseful spending of that shade tree money if we had a closer budget process?
Well, I guess my only comment there is that if a tree looks damaged or dying, when John calls and says, I think I have a tree that's a hazard,
Well, then that's a different consideration, but sometimes trees come down for just no reason at all.
no, but you know what I'm saying? Well, no, I don't know about the no reason at all.
Well, no, I mean, we have our budget. If we get close to the end of the budget, don't do the act and then expect it to be paid for. That's actually not good budget good budget processing.
I understand what you're saying. Since we've always seemed to be high on tree management because of the quantity of trees, it wouldn't seem sensible to budget less this year next year than we've already spent this year. I certainly agree that we should use the best practices for choosing which trees need attention.
Right.
But as far as I know, and I guess John would have to talk to you about that, I mean, they only cut down trees that are in need of attention.
So,
We can add
We
two
can
back
look at-
there, or
we
take
can
two
look
from
at
the
what
celebration.
A celebration around the tree. We'll get celebrating cutting down the tree.
Wrap it with ropes. No, I just don't want to, intentionally go low. I mean, if we'd spent $8,000 on the 15.
no, it's not intentional. We were trying to balance a
Oh,
budget.
no, I understand. It just seemed like
Putting one place is not intentional, it's where we thought
okay.
the best place to cut would be.
I think we've had a surplus in that line item of a couple of thousand at the end of the past few years. So we thought, oh, maybe we'll, but it's close, it's a very close account.
That's another thing we did in this process, was look at each account individual, and see how much was left over in each account.
Trees are tough though, because, there's probably 10,000 trees in the village. I mean, if you went around and started counting, it's a remarkable number of trees. It doesn't take a very high percentage of them. And none of them can fall down in wide open spaces. I mean, every tree is expensive.
Well, John was hoping to use that 1,100 left to plant more trees, actually.
Well, we use some of the budget to plant trees, but, okay.
We can use our plan funds for that.
Okay. All right, moving along.
Well noted.
All right, state retirement we reduced by a lot. I'm assuming that we got some feedback based on the salaries of the people who could be retiring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And
well,
we spent
I had-
44,000 2 years ago, and then we budgeted 40, and I don't know what I know that the state retirement, they can bill us whatever the heck they want. They don't ask, they just bill.
Well, I did get the fees for 2018 before we placed that budget number, but what is the account number?
9010.8. This is just one that in previous issues has come up to take, especially during the recession years, took some huge jumps. They went from one year I think it was 22,000, and the next year it was like 36,000, and we were like, and they were like, oh, well, we need more money.
So last year we budgeted 40,000, we've used 30,000 of that and have 90 left. See if I can find the
This
ones
is a
that's
once a
given this
year
year.
bill that we pay, I believe, in December.
That's something we probably the economy and the interest rates and those are.
I think the recession brought to light that the state, like New York State was in better shape than some states, but many state retirement funds were under budgeted, and we probably saw that big change because they were getting their budget balance again. But if they've given us the number, that's fine. I just want to confirm that because, as I said, that's they don't ask, they tell.
Yeah, I call them.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to hold up while you?
No,
find
please
it?
don't.
Okay,
Please
but the
don't.
35 was based on feedback from them.
The 35 that we budgeted now?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay, I just
Yep.
want to check. All right, okay, so now I guess onto the actual capital, the DPW capital fund. It says it was budgeted for 25 last year, and it's in here for 10 this year.
What lines?
Well, it says interfund transfer.
Interfund transfers.
I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
That means when we transfer money from one line item to another, it has to be within the same fund. Like an A has to be transferred to an A.
Okay, but,
So that, the money we put in for this year, are you talking about? Is that your question?
well, no, I'm just asking, is this line item, A 9960.9, where we are putting money into a capital projects DPW fund? And I'm asking, did we put aside $25,000 for
That's
DPW.
actually for the fire department, that first line.
Well, the first line I'm not looking at, that says fire department, so I'm ignoring that.
The second one, Cat Project DPW.
That was the 25,000 I was talking about before, that's been in there for the last few years, budgeted in there.
But it hasn't accumulated,
But-
to Chris's point.
It hasn't accumulated, no. Because it's not a true reserve fund, which is what we're hoping to remedy. So in other words, that 25,000 for last year was interfund transferred to the South Farm project.
Okay,
Now, part of the monies I just got back, we can put that 25,000 back.
into a DPW capital fund?
And create the,
Correct, and create a reserve fund with that.
That will
Now,
accumulate.
going forward, we'll accumulate.
And
And we all have bank
Part of
statements.
this is corrected.
I'm sorry.
Part of this number here is corrected then. So-
Correct.
okay, so I guess then the question is then the previous year's money that we put in the budget,
At the end of the year, went into the unallocated pool.
so it would be available from the unallocated fund balance if we wanted to buy a DPW piece of capital equipment,
Correct.
but it wasn't specifically earmarked.
And that's what we're looking to change, so we can have a piece of money.
No, I understand that, I'm just a little surprised. So when we look at the 2017 or 2016 unallocated fund balance of 104,000, that 104,000 also included the money that we had set aside for the DPW that didn't go into the DPW fund. Would that be an accurate statement?
Would you say it again, please?
Sure. I said, so if I look at the unallocated fund balance of $104,000 at the end of 2016, which I'm guessing is the money we didn't spend out of the budget,
Correct.
that number actually included money that I thought we had earmarked for DPW capital expenditures because it returned to the unallocated fund balance.
If this had been the process, you know, I can say that's correct, but I would want to verify that with Jane.
That would also leave a very, very low fund balance. An unacceptably low fund balance. If we, for example, take 50,000 out of that, put into DPW account, or any account.
Okay. Well, this year it's a little higher, which is, I guess, good. But it doesn't achieve the goal of getting capital money, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm assuming that whatever we write for this DPW equipment fund, we'll put something in there that says, you know, if the village ever has to borrow money to pay for something, we can borrow our own money to pay for it. You know, it'd be silly to not have access to those funds.
Well, are you saying we have to say that? We have to put that in writing?
I don't know, that would
I
be
mean,
a
rules of using unallocated fund balance.
no, I'm not talking about unallocated fund balance. I said if we create a DPW equipment fund,
The policy.
That's
Policy.
That's part of the resolution and policy.
if it's a restricted fund, but you would want to put something, you wouldn't want to have $100,000 in DPW equipment and then need to do $80,000 in building maintenance
No.
because the roof collapsed and not be able to access those funds. You wouldn't want to
Well,
touch it.
how you word the reserve, the
Right.
policy for the reserve. fund.
Right, so you want to keep,
We have a draft.
Okay.
The policy. Oh, the one I have.
Yeah, what page are you beating us to read?
We're already. Wait for Tom to read it.
okay, so will we still get back to the fact that we don't have a projected capital amount that's going to be required for the department, the DPW, so that we can start building a fund to meet those needs, right?
Correct. And we, I imagine you take a look at the saltwater reimbursement money. And some of that can go into this fund.
The 25,000 can go back. but not any more than that, because that
Well,
had specific
it's not a bad
allocations.
start, we'll have 35,000 at the start of next year.
Well, I don't know when because we don't have it in front of us, I don't know when the next vehicle purchase is.
Well, we have to get after John to,
Yeah, he had a schedule.
He told us,
He
but I
does,
can't
he said,
remember.
kind of said it loosely, and I think he said we had one pickup and maybe a big one. But he hasn't given us,
But I mean, a big truck.
Stuff in writing.
I mean, a big truck is like 180,000. So I don't know when that, is that in 2025 or is that in 2020?
I think it's more like 2020.
Yeah, so that means we're $130,000 short of the $185,000.
can I just show you quickly my worksheets for retirement? So the 2019 rate went to 15.7. So I had to do a table and break down tier 4 and tier 6 employees and what each contribution was. Tier 4, this is the contribution. Tier 6, this is the contribution. This is the total amount. And then we break it out into A, F, and G.
Yeah, no, that's great. As long as they gave us the number, because as I said, they can be kind of screwy.
Right here.
State it, they can be screwy.
Got it right off the website. And confirmed.
She's good.
Well,
Trust and verify.
the state can be happy. Well, I guess, as far as all that goes, I mean, the thing I would like to see is John's equipment schedule and what money we need by when, and if we need to try to, get more money into that budget. I don't know where we're gonna get the money from, but, we should have a goal.
I agree.
Um, Okay. So on the income side, the culture and recreation is most of what comes in from the auditorium, is that?
Revenue share.
Yeah.
What page?
Page 5. I mean, you budgeted 8 and we're budgeting 8 again, I'm assuming that's all auditorium income.
Under culture.
Yeah.
There might be a slight hit there. The Adirondack Heat is not renting the field this year.
Oh, is that combined in that?
I think that's where it comes into,
So that might have to, we are looking at getting a replacement, but it won't be for as much as Adirondack Heat. So that will probably have to come down 1,000 or 1,500.
Okay.
One thing is fall under, in the page 5, 2/3 of the way down, A 2660, sales of real property, what's that from?
That's the Valenti money.
That's the previous years, and that's ending now.
we're trying to use less of it, so that's why we've shown 10,000 on that line.
And the rest goes
And the rest is gonna go
reserve
to
fund.
reserve account. We're trying to wean ourselves off from.
Right, we used 102,000 last year.
Yeah.
How much actually comes in on that?
102,000.
Oh, so we, probably that's the thing he hopes about.
like most of the auditorium
Right.
contractions are not shown.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought, but it also includes the ball field.
It'd be like money you get from markets and things like that. It's elsewhere.
No.
Any festival that's what we're doing.
Markets.
Gifts and donations, is that gifts and donations?
Actually, the Whirlish share of the markets went into this,
Into celebrations?
into culture and rec.
Oh, okay.
When we rent the auditorium.
All right, well, I'm onto the water, I don't know if you've gotten to the water yet.
Just up to the world themselves.
I don't know.
Page 6. I'm just looking at that.
A pretty big jump in the labor portion, staff time.
You mean jump in
Yeah, the numbers,
the budget?
10%,
Well, we include, we always include the 2% annual raise, but that's not significant.
Which line are you on, or which?
No, I was just looking under total water administration, we only went up 10%, I just was curious.
Went up a lot in 2 years.
Hmm?
If you count 2 years, we jumped a lot the year before too.
Mhm.
37, went up to 43 and a half to 47.
Well, 2 of the guys got their water license. That increased their pay rate
Last year.
as well as the 2%.
So how many people have water licenses now?
3.
3.
And none of them work on
Well, there's
If you
two,
need to.
2 hours mandatory. The water has to be checked every day. That's 104 hours. So
I don't know, I'm objecting to it, I'm just curious, what happens in a water check? Just so I know, what does it actually do?
you have to take readings, chlorine level, things like that, record them.
So it's 2 hours minimum, just to have.
An hour each day, Saturday, and Sunday.
We're
Oh,
still
sure,
over
something,
our
right.
overtime this year too. And that's, it's not something you can really plan, but we overdrew on overtime quite a bit this year.
So, it looks like we have a change in allocation too, because we have an office staff number that's gone up.
What line is that? Oh, there it is.
Yes, 831014.
I think we recalculated the percentages, and that led to that. Is that correct?
We did. We took my salary and calculated the percentages across A, F, and G, and did the same with Kim.
So that so may go up in this area, lower than other, others are, you're calculating how much time is spent on this as well.
And this also didn't include the auditor. No, it doesn't. There's a separate column for that. Yeah, we spent a fair amount of time recalculating the percentages. Because these are 3 basically separate funds, and people are paid out of each of them. There's the general, the water, and the sewer fund. But I will double check that tomorrow.
But the F is the, what is it?
Water.
The A is,
A is general, F is water, and G is sewer.
do we allocate any of the staff hours to the fire department?
Yes. Kim and I.
Yeah, okay.
Jane, yes.
Yeah. But that's not a different,
I think she's actually in there for that one.
She's in.
the 3410.
That's the one she's in,
Right.
$12,000.
but the fire department all goes under the general fund, right?
Salaries are in the general.
Okay.
So you see it, the 12,000 on the first line,
Yeah.
fire department,
Mhm.
is Robin, myself, and Jane.
Okay,
All of us.
so those percentages didn't change.
You guys were doing
Yeah,
that,
we
I don't know.
We did
We,
recalculate, I mean, I.
we recalculated them to match the numbers.
Never wrote it down.
Okay, so we're not buying as much water. Now here's one that doesn't add up the other way. If you look on page 6 under transmission distribution, and then we have the new .10 account, which is where all of the hourly pay is summarized. Is that 15,000 correct at the bottom?
For last year?
Yeah,
Somebody have a calculator?
because it looks like now we're adding in 7,000, whereas in the past, that was a reference. On the other line items, that was a reference.
That is probably like clicking one too many cells in the formula.
Or
Okay,
is that
But I think-
because John had a separate line for transmission and distribution as superintendent? Do you remember that discussion?
I was going down the line looking
No,
at
he
it.
does, in this one, he doesn't have a separate line. He's
Correct.
included.
So I think we included him,
Yeah, it was only 2671.
we included him in that bulk number. Because for some reason, he had a separate transmission and distribution line just for superintendent.
No, it just says John S.
okay,
That's
well,
shafts.
okay, so maybe that does add up properly, but then, so my question is, why does it go down so much?
Did we take out the equipment line there?
Yeah, we
Reduce
see the
that to zero, I
equipment
think
is
we
zero.
did, I think that was discussed.
Yeah.
And I think
It
we
was,
took that
with
out,
Johnny's
because he never spent
agreement.
it, said he never spent that money.
So I gotta relook at that.
Okay, so what was the intent for the equipment for water?
It hadn't really been spent.
Well, I don't know, is this the hardware for the valves, is this?
That's
I know that-
minimal, I can tell you.
I mean, it was 5,000 and nothing had really been spent out of it.
Well, I know that we had, I don't know where we stand on the valve hardware replacement.
Oh, that's part of the capital project.
Right, well, okay,
You're talking about pump houses and stuff, or are you talking about the water?
I'm talking about all of the water shut-off valves that have been having corroding hardware, or some have, because some are stainless and some aren't.
That's part of the capital project. And I know we set an audit trail on this particular account to see what was spent out of it.
And we did it with John too.
Yeah.
But we should clarify with him why.
Well, no, I think think that 5,000 was originally for, you know, he was gonna do X number of valves per year and replace hardware, but you know. And that's fine as long as we have budgeted purchasing the hardware somewhere. You said the capital project, Karen? Well, we were gonna pay for some of it out of the grant money. But we still have to budget pay for it, right? Well, we would show somewhere that we're gonna spend money on hardware, right?
Revisit this.
Yeah, no, you're right.
No, it's
Yeah, no, they do. It's just that there was a big decrease.
the 5,000, I mean, the other numbers are connected to the same, they're okay.
Yeah.
It's the 5,000 that's the question.
Well, we appropriated 5,000 and we still have a balance of 4684. The only thing that's come out of that is the water meter read annual renewal that we just,
Oh, the census thing.
Right. and that's the only thing that's come out of that this year. So remember, there's a transmission distribution contractual as well. Supplies and parts have come out of that. You know, the difference is we started there with $2,500, we have $48 left. So some of those supplies come out of contractual.
Okay, and the revenues look straightforward. Carrie, our earlier email said something about money from one place to another, and that's changed now that the shortfall in the budget is just going to come out of the appropriated fund balance. You originally had proposed something about using money from some.
The Belmont money.
Yeah.
We met with the attorney and he said we can't do that.
Okay, so do we have an appropriated fund balance to get money from?
We have a water fund balance. That 76 on
So we do have something left over, is that what you're
it.
saying?
Yeah, right.
Well, the year before we had like close to zero.
Well, it's built itself up, and we just finished our tax. And things like that. So it's built back up.
I just know that last year's budget, the auditor was like, I don't know if there'll be anything left in the fund balance to use, so that.
That was 2014, we did the other, that was a couple of years ago. So we built it over like a few years.
Well, we probably should have done a little each year.
What, raising the rate a little bit each year. We
So-
raised it initially, I think, the year after that.
Right. So
She finished her audit, I think, in spring of 2015, and then in the next cycle, we raised that 11%. And then we haven't touched it again in 3 years. But it has built, with that increase, it did build.
Yeah, I don't know which budget year it was, but I thought it was last year, when we got towards the end of the year, she was concerned that there wouldn't be any appropriated fund balance to use to balance the budget for the water budget, because we could spent so close to what we've taken in.
She did tell us a few months back, and maybe we reported it in, in the board meeting, that she reminded us we have to be cognizant of what our water fund balance is, because we didn't want to get to where we were in 2014.
Okay. So in the sewer fund, we've got something here called contingent contractual that's new. What's that? Or is that just moved from somewhere?
G 1990.4.
More revenue than we had expenditure, so put it somewhere,
Yeah, it's a contingency account.
contingency.
This is a good thing.
What page are we on?
Page 7.
Page
It's a new line item. It's never been there before, so.
I
Yeah.
don't even remember that.
I had been there, but yeah.
It's been there, but it's only been 0.
But the sewer
Wrong page, so
fund does have
1990.
a little capital reserve, right?
Sort of.
Not a capital reserve account, it is,
A,
we've been spending less than we've been taking it in.
yes.
We
I
have
went-
a fund balance, we have a surplus.
Right, a number of years ago, that surplus was excessively large.
For sewer.
Right, and rates were reduced and the balance was drawn down. But I don't know where we are in relation to, how that's doing.
Right here. Here's our year-to-date sewer fund balance.
Okay, so you're saying the unappropriated funds are 24,000, and we only take in 89.
Where are you getting 89, I'm sorry.
We're gonna take in 89 and spend 89, and we have 24 extra.
Right.
Okay,
That's rolled over from year to year, right? In sewer.
Right.
That's the fund, is that the fund balance?
yeah, I understand.
Fund balance will change.
It's just that,
Control
that,
requires us to keep in reserve.
They want to, and the controller, you call them, had advised to keep a 3-month operating budget for the money in a fund balance.
Right, for general water and sewer, a good rule of thumb is to look at 3 months' worth or 1 quarter of what your total expenditures are. And that amount should be a safe fund balance to keep ongoing. And of course, quarter to quarter that changes, but I actually did the numbers and pulled out an average of what the quarterly fund balances are. Which is also part of the policy that you're going to be reviewing pretty soon.
I'm just bringing it up because a number of years ago, the save a little every year went on for 15 years, and all of a sudden there was too much money in there. We adjusted rates down, and then we used some of that up. We adjusted rates back, so hopefully we're now.
Well,
On
I think
balance.
the policy would be very clear.
This is a good formula, and that's why we need the policy. I mean, OSC stresses that you just need that policy to be able to stay on track. And we have a good idea now where we should be with our fund balances to be safe.
So if it does get excessive, we will know it, and be able to adjust, over time.
There's a chart for that.
Okay, on page 8, G 9960.9. I think this is just another one where there's a $5,000 total, but there's no $5,000 in the line. Is that just missing, or am I
What was that again?
9960.9 under debt service?
Oh, you put the 5,000 wrong.
Yeah, I think you just,
Oh, yeah, it's,
No, I just want to make sure that, because I just look for the things that are like,
yeah,
Yeah, so
that's
it's there,
the
there.
total. I just didn't-
right, no, I just want to, just to be clear. Just because I'm curious, how many sewer and water units are we up to? Do we have that number?
Approximately 327 water units. And sewer, I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to check. Under 300, but I don't have an exact
Oh, the water's that much less?
number. More. Sewer is like, I'm sorry, sewer is just below 300, I think, but I don't have an exact.
Okay, so
So water is 25 more, 30 more.
and that's because some of our sewer customers
On the county.
are, they go directly to the county.
287 for sewer.
Thereabouts, 270, 290 maybe.
Okay, the homes being added at Griffin's Ridge and
Griffin's Ridge sewer is right to the county.
it's sewers to the
Yeah, so
county.
that's, you're never gonna see
We're
that.
not, but they're gonna be new water customers. I mean, they've only got 6 houses down
Right, there's three families. So they're paying water, and up the hill's paying water and sewer.
there. Water and sewer for everyone. And so we're only up, but we're still only up to 327 water. Okay. I'm out of questions.
Paul? Any more?
No, I'm just. I don't know, just
Did you have questions other than specific?
Well, just, if we can just review again where you want, you said, for the general fund, just where the shortfalls. You're taking 2 places, right? 11,192 from the leftovers fund,
Yeah.
and 10,000 from the Belmont.
Yeah.
And the water fund, you're showing the short by $7,600. And so you wanted to go $30 per year.
That's already in the budget.
And 7609 for the water reserve fund.
Excuse me, that's right. 7609 is the water reserve fund, the other is already in the budget, which is about, the total shortfall would be,
18.
yeah, like another 10,900 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's show here.
That's
That just shows it.
I remember now. This was confusing.
It is confusing.
We didn't want to raise the rates so much to
Oh, no,
make up
that's
the
right.
difference. We thought we did a balance of use some fund balance and then raise the rates a little, it'll be less.
All of the labor staff rates in here reflected a 2% cost of living increase.
In closing, I have to say how much I appreciate the work that Dixie's done on this budget over the years. It just is mind-boggling. Very eye-opening.
When you began, was it abacus, was it?
What?
When you began, was it abacus? It's now they have this fancy, spreadsheet.
Well, actually, there was a shopping bag in the closet and it had money in it.
Bag for receipts.
And they would just go in the bag and spend the money
Yeah, figure
and then somebody later on couldn't figure out where all the money came from or went.
out. I'd also like to thank the people who have been on this committee, who've been working on this. I don't know how much work that was.
It was,
I mean, I can imagine, I don't know.
I have to say, it was enjoyable. I like learning new stuff and
It was fun. So we did pull that in a little
You're right,
bit.
it is. Be for next year, right?
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
we can join it.
You can join the team.
Well, remember next year, we're gonna look at projecting it out a few years.
We'll try to do like
That'll be another challenge.
multi-year planning.
What's their time frame for the budget? When does the clerk has to present the budget?
At the board meeting next Wednesday.
That's a public presentation. And
Has to be approved by the
By the
April.
April, before May first.
Okay, but you,
So I'm gonna present it to the board as a board meeting next week. In early April, we can have a public hearing for the public to comment and ask
okay,
questions.
but, so by that time, you've gotta collect information like John's capital expenditure
Yeah.
expectations and all the rest of that. So you may make changes to what we saw in order to include that.
yes,
Correct.
Okay.
So we can do that
Like,
before.
Yeah.
Well, I can run through them now. We're gonna get John's equipment schedule for his capital expenditures. Under maintenance of roads, we're gonna look at that, last year's column, which didn't add up appropriately. Then under celebrations and youth, the 10,000 consensus says it's too high.
No, questions. Good night.
Speak with the committee and see what they're looking at to spend.
Shade trees, we reduced by 2,000, so we're gonna relook at that a little bit closer.
I guess the only other thing that's
I
sort of
guess that was it.
is sort of confusing to me is, we have certain expenses that are going up for water, like, testing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that have gone up or are going up. Yet, some of those could potentially be reimbursed from the grant, but we don't have any of the other expenses in the budget. In other words, we're going to spend, nor do we show any other income.
right. We did increase the testing in the water line.
Increase the testing a lot, and increase
7,000,
the
I think.
Right.
engineer
Exactly this amount.
Right, but
and the
I guess,
engineer's line item as well.
right, but as I said, what's confusing is we're going to get money in from this grant, and we're going to be spending the money, but the money we're spending and the money we're getting in don't show up in this budget at all.
Correct.
But the testing does.
I mean, yeah, that portion is, that's a.
And do we do that because Mike said you're not gonna see this for a couple of years? Is that why we did it that way?
I don't know if it's a couple of years. Some of the reimbursements we can put in more now, I think.
Well, we're gonna close on that first disbursement in April.
Yeah, we can start getting.
And then I've already gone through and they will be paid for the extra testing. The typical monthly testing gets paid out of our budget. And they will pay for the extra testing, which John and I work together to identify that extra testing. And then we can submit those bills.
Going back a year.
So, right, in April, we can start drawing from that.
I guess that's the one part of the whole budget that's not, it's not really transparent, is the money we're spending on engineering, pilot studies, and the money that we potentially are going to borrow, right? We haven't borrowed money yet, have we?
How does it work with the borrowing of the money? I mean, it's there for us, I believe it's there for us. But we haven't got
Is that-
that
that's
yet.
the
That's the EFC, right? It's there and available for us when we get a bill, we can,
Yeah, but have we
Not yet.
borrowed money?
We haven't closed that.
no,
No, we haven't closed that yet.
and we haven't borrowed any
Oh, you're right.
So,
Over
I mean-
area potentially could be a big thing that's not really in here. Because we have to,
Right, I think we would discuss creating
Sorry, what you do.
a reserve fund for water specifically for this. So that the money could go back into that.
Alright, it's
So
just,
we could
it's
show it
just,
as a revenue somewhere.
Yeah.
What you're saying is any state grants or funding coming in and is not shown.
well, we only get money if we spend the money. So it's not in really, we know we're going to do it, but we haven't done it yet. So I'm just saying it's a part of the budget that it's a part of what we're working on that's not in the regular budget. And that's why
We
it's
can
sort
just
of,
schedule.
well, I mean, whether or not it's on a separate sheet of paper that says, you know, these are the anticipated expenditures and, you know, et cetera, but it's not.
It's still a potential, I guess, at this point. It's not in there now.
Well, we can just
No, you're right, we do need to work on this.
We could do a schedule to the budget, which makes it transparent.
Well, it's kind of like the parkland fund doesn't show up in here. I mean, no, it doesn't show up in the budget, it shows
It's
up,
on the balance sheet, right?
right, we just show it as, this is money that's there, we don't show it as anyplace else. And I don't know how we would put that on the sheet as far as the money that we are going to borrow and the intended expenditures, but I think,
It kind of skews the budget, and that's,
well, it doesn't go in the budget because it's a separate capital project. I'm just saying that when it's presented to the public, they should be aware that, you know, this money is intended to be spent and that's where it's coming from, even though it sits outside the regular budget. I don't know how to get that on a piece of paper intelligently, but.
I would call it a schedule.
All right.
To be discussed.
Are we actually in session as a regular meeting?
Yes. Entertain motion to adjourn?
Do you have any questions?
Were we, not at this, but we were going to talk about auditorium manager.
Oh.
Yeah, because I sent around the contract to you guys.
Any other questions? Because she's waiting for approval. And.
I have no
Remember this one?
questions.
Yeah, do you remember this one that the last meeting? I was sick at the last meeting and it was, I hadn't had a chance to.
I haven't sent it around.
Review it.
I
Yeah,
haven't sent it.
well, it hadn't been in the past, but I
I just assumed it was on our next meeting.
I mean,
next week, if it's, is it next week or?
yes, next week.
Just if you want.
Well, I'm fine.
We did
But
two
I know
other,
we were focusing on this.
we did two other resolutions before this, so.
I'm going to plead guilty to not reading whatever the contract is. When did you send it?
Oh,
How many weeks?
do it next week?
Yeah, I just don't want to ask her to hang up after that, because she's putting a lot of work into this.
And I don't know.
Okay.
if we do that to be in the budget.
Yeah, that's the point one.
It really is.
It's okay, let's just read it, because
We
I
kept it at 8,000 as the same.
Yeah, I know.
I secret think it's eight.
I think she said a while ago.
Yeah, I know.
But
Except with the request for upfront.
Yeah, that was a request upfront.
yeah, it isn't upfront, it's before the season, but she has been working on this and working on the website, so she has spent time on this already.
But in the contract, there was something about that it would be, the payments to her would be in 3 parts. Of the first one, it looked like was happening in the fiscal year that we're in now. And I know that was
Oh,
tricky.
oh,
I mean, could you take it under first?
I can talk about it, if that's an issue for which fiscal year it's in, yeah, that's all.
So the auditorium manager gets paid $3,500?
Yeah, it's less than before, because we're putting that money into advertising and it's a whole different structure. The idea is that she would oversee all of it, but that people would be managing individual events separately. Basically, as volunteers, it was an increased advertising budget. So the idea was to treat the whole thing a little differently than it had in the past.
unincreased advertising budget? We don't have an advertising budget.
I think it's in contractual, I think last year we did 1,000 in contractual.
We had 1,500, I think, last year, and it should be 2,000 now because we're taking at least. But the idea was auditorium managers had 4,000 last year, 3,500 this year, with that money going over to the advertising budget.
Pretty bottom. Bottom of page 3.
Contractual 3,500.
What's the personnel service on that?
So the 7,000, the .1 line item is auditorium manager and Dan Pesca
Mhm.
and the cleaner, Dan.
Okay. And then the
However, I don't know
contractual,
if we made the change, Heidi, 500 out of that, then 500 into contractual. Or did you want to maybe reduce that to 6,500 and put 500 into, move 500 down into .4?
I don't know how you're dividing this up, so.
Well, actually, you know what, it's within 75-60, I don't think it's going to really matter. I think we can move that within the fund as needed when the time comes.
Okay.
Still the same as last year, 855, that includes ERM and performers.
Say that again?
The last line on auditorium just will show ERF.
Yeah, performers, yeah.
So we're just basically dividing it out. We're going to focus at 9,500, we have 6 and 3,500. Otherwise,
so then the 7,000 is the auditorium manager, the cleaning and services,
And Dan.
and Dan.
Yeah.
And then equipment's equipment, and then what's the 3,500?
3,500 was
the
electric.
manager.
That was an electric, that's paying for, the bathrooms, and what else? Would that be, I think advertising came out of that as well. I don't know, look up and see.
And then the 6,000?
And the 6,000,
I don't think you're right about the
to
manager.
pay for, we get, usually the stewards grant pays for a little bit of performances, but then we have to pay like the magic show guy and,
3,500 is for this contract, right?
what's that?
I can't see where the contract is.
You see the line, 2,000, 2,000, 3,500, and 6,000?
Yeah, I know, but I
The
was
3,500 is for the contract that the person is.
so that was from personnel services.
Okay,
Let's move
how about, we can table this till next week and then find out
Okay,
what goes in what lines for the application next.
I read the contract, I found it.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
It's
Oh,
actually
we didn't
more
want to take-
detailed than it was in the past, because we're trying to do something differently, so we're being very clear about what.
But I think we are the first payment for the fiscal year.
But if, yeah, so if that throws things off, June 1st would be the earliest that would be in the correct.
We signed the
fiscal year.
contract, we just write a check on
Okay.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you for staying awake out there.